All right, guys, so in a continuation of the Democrat slash progressive meltdown over Joe Manchin doing what the citizens of West Virginia want him to do, we're going to talk about AOC and Ilhan Omar, who has went on TV and responded to this, right? They're melting down over this. Yesterday, we talked about Bernie Sanders and his meltdown, him questioning Joe Manchin's guts, right? Saying that he ain't got the guts, okay, to vote for Biden's Build Back Better plan, right? So we talked about it yesterday. Then we're going to talk about AOC and Ilhan Omar. And I want to go ahead and roll the clip of them discussing their thoughts, right, about Joe Manchin basically ending Joe Biden's hopes and dreams by saying that he is not going to vote yes on the Build Back Better plan. Take a look.
Humanly possible. I can't get there. Brett Baer, the anchor, says you're done. Manchin says this is a no. On this legislation, I have tried everything I know how to do. Your response to that?
I mean, we all knew that Senator Manchin couldn't be trusted. You know, the excuses that he just made, I think, are complete bullshit. It is really disheartening to hear him say that he has been trying to get there for the people of West Virginia, because that's a complete lie. The people of West Virginia would greatly benefit from their families having access to long-term elderly care and care for folks with disabilities. They would benefit from the expansion of the child tax credits. They will benefit from having access to pre-K. There are just so many things.
I mean, it is unconscionable the way that the Senate operates. It's fundamentally undemocratic, and now what it's doing is that it is allowing the stripping of people's voting rights across the country. We're in a crisis. 19 states have passed over 33 laws to limit or restrict the right to vote in the United States of America. We are beyond the time for something to pass. And my concern is that even Manchin's compromise, or the fact that he was making statements just this past week that he was just having conversations with the parliamentarian about voting rights that were illuminating. How has this not happened all year long? And so what we really need to do is crack down on the Senate, which operates like an old boys club that has a couple of gals in it that have managed to break through. And we need to actually we actually need to implement some institutional discipline.
All right, guys. So I kind of got a whole lot to say about this, because these Democrats and these progressives getting so upset about Joe Manchin doing literally what 74% of the voters in his state want him to do is literally an example why political parties are bad, especially why the two-party system is bad, okay? Because they're literally trying to pressure this man to do something that the voters in his state don't want him to do, okay? They don't want him to do it. So y'all keep coming out here trying to attack this man and his character, trying to say he's corrupt and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying that's not true, but I think all politicians are corrupt, including AOC and Ilhan Omar. They're probably the most corrupt of the politicians, to be quite honest with you, but I'm just saying. You trying to muddy this man's name, throw him in the mud, right? Trying to pretend like he's a bad person. We need to overhaul the system and blah, 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 blah. Simply because he's doing what his voters want him to do. He wasn't voted in to do what the Democrat Party wants him to do. He was voted in to do what his voters want him to do. I don't understand why Democrats can't respect that concept that these senators belong to their people, right? They're representatives of their people, not the Democrat Party. And ain't it amazing how Democrats continue to do the same thing that they always do? They want to tell other people what's best for them instead of just respecting what those people want, right? They always come out here with these talking points about West Virginia voters. Well, you know, West Virginia voters, they need the child tax credit and they need free health care and universal daycare and all this other stuff that the Democrats want to offer, right? They need us. They need us. They need the government. And while saying that, they also low-key say, oh, your state is bad. Your state is terrible. Your state is poor, right? Your people suck. And because of that, we know what's best for you, right? Basically implying that they're too dumb to make their own decision. And that's why you really never hear them come out here and cite polling that clearly shows that the voters of West Virginia actually don't want this legislation. And they actually approve of what Joe Manchin is doing. Joe Manchin is more popular in West Virginia than Biden, way more popular in West Virginia than Biden. The Republican governor of West Virginia, Jim Justice, is way more popular than Joe Biden. So what incentive does Joe Manchin have to try to push legislation that his voters don't want, right? And these same people who want to go up here and talk about democracy. And it's like, bro, this is literally democracy. This is how the system is supposed to work. And you guys are sitting here complaining about it because you can't get what you want. Notice how John McCain, when he voted no on repeal on Obamacare, he was a maverick, right? He was a maverick according to the Democrats. But when Joe Manchin does the same thing to the Democrats, all of a sudden he's corrupt. He's a sellout, okay? You see how this works? So don't sit and talk about, oh, we care about democracy. No, you only care about democracy when you want what you want. That's the only time you care, because you clearly don't give a damn about what West Virginians actually want. And see, now, the progressives, people like AOC, they've gotten so desperate that they've revealed how foolish that they are, right? In regards to our government and how our government is supposed to work. Because now AOC is out here talking about the Senate, right? The Senate is undemocratic, right? It's undemocratic. It's the good old boys club, right? And why should a state like West Virginia have more say than an area like the Bronx, right? Listen to AOC actually give this recent interview in which she, for whatever reason, believes that the Bronx is actually larger than West Virginia.
Taking so long to protect the right to vote in the United States, it's because, you look at someone like, for example, in West Virginia has a similar population to the Bronx or like a couple of our boroughs put together, let alone all of New York State. And so the Senate is a fundamentally undemocratic institution. And I would argue that it is actually imperiling the rest of our democracy because it is blocking action to protect our democracy in a lot of other ways. And so, there are a lot of very key and important ways in the U.S. is lacking democracy.
Yeah, so first and foremost, West Virginia actually does have a larger population than the Bronx by about 300 or 400, 500,000 people or so, I believe. Okay, but the point here is that AOC, she thinks that she's smarter than the founders, right? She thinks that she knows more about how this country should be run and how our government should be set up than the founders do. And I can tell you right now that she absolutely doesn't. Because what she's talking about is a direct democracy versus a representative democracy. We are a representative democracy. That's what we are. And if you want to get real specific about it, we are a federal constitutional representative democracy, a republic and a democracy, okay, in which we elect representatives through direct democracy. When senators are elected, they're elected by popular vote, right? And representatives as well. But the way our government is actually set up is so that there is balance, right? Between smaller states and larger states. And the reason why is because the founders were wise enough to understand, unlike AOC, that mob rule is not good, right? And that different parts of this country have different needs, okay? Because again, if we all had to capitulate to what New York wants, our whole country would be in lockdown and we would have forced vaccinations and forced wearing masks and all types of stuff that would probably cause a revolt across areas of this country that are rural and more conservative that don't want that, right? It would probably lead to civil war, okay? So it's actually a good thing that small states can do what they want to do and large states can do what they want to do, right? Which is basically the way that the founders set it up. And if you want to push something on the whole country, right? If you want legislation that's going to impact the whole country, then we have to make sure overwhelmingly that large states and small states want it, right? That's why we have the House of Representatives, which is more advantageous to larger states because they get more representatives based off their population. Now, the Senate, on the other hand, okay, that has equal representation among states, right? And the reason why is so that small states don't get ran over by large states. Okay, so there has to be a balance. There has to be a agreement among small states and large states in regards to what they want. Okay, it's really that simple. So the Senate is actually serving a function that it's supposed to serve. It's doing exactly what the founders intended it to do. It's not anti-democratic. It's simply how our government is supposed to work. Direct democracy is not good. Not all the way up to the point where we live in a large country where a large amount of people that live in a small area are trying to put their needs on everybody else. That's not good. But see, again, this is the mindset of people like AOC. She has no respect for people that don't live in big cities. She has no respect for those people at all. She has no respect for their autonomy. She has no respect for what they want. And again, what really blows my mind outside of the fact that, again, she's ignorant about how government's supposed to work, is also, well, maybe she's not ignorant. Maybe she's just salty, right? That she's not getting her way. Is also how they keep trying to frame this bill as if this bill is supposed to save America or something, right? Oh, climate change. This bill is not solving climate change. It's not. Climate change is a global issue. Even if we reduce our emissions down to zero, we only emit 15% of the emissions, right? So that means 15% is gone. You still got 85% of it left to get rid of. You think China, Russia, India, the European Union, all these other countries that are emitting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, you think all of a sudden they just gonna stop because the U.S. stopped? Again, I'm not even convinced that the Build Back Better plan would actually get our emissions down to zero. Probably won't. But I'm just saying, they keep framing this bill as if it's gonna do a bunch of things that it's actually not going to do. It's not, right? They keep sitting here talking about voting rights are under attack. Well, I'm gonna tell you something. Democrats have been saying that for literally decades, right? Because the GOP has been passing election integrity / voter ID laws literally for years. Years. This is not new, okay? And Democrats have still been able to win elections despite the GOP doing that. So, again, I'm just tired of hearing the BS, man. Again, these same people that want to talk about democracy, they have no respect for the fact that the American people gave the Democrats a slight advantage in the House, a chamber of Congress that favors large states, okay? They only had a slight advantage. The American people voted to tie the Senate. And because Kamala is the vice president, they have a 1 vote advantage in the Senate. That's what they voted for, right? That's literally what the American people voted for. They voted for bipartisan legislation. And guess what? Legislation that was bipartisan passed, right? The bipartisan infrastructure package, for example, that passed. Republicans voted for it, Democrats voted for it. Now, I know a whole lot of people on the right didn't like the fact that Mitch McConnell and some other Republicans voted for it, but I'm just saying, that's what the American people voted for when they made it a 50-50 Senate. That's what the American people voted for when they gave the Democrats a slight advantage in the House. The American people didn't vote for you guys to come in and just spend $5, $6, $7, $8 trillion to push all y'all socialist spending programs on everybody. That's not what they voted for. They voted for bipartisanship. They voted for stalemate. They voted for gridlock. They voted for compromise. That's what the American people voted for. If the American people want what you want, guess what? Come 2022, they're going to give you more seats in the House, right? And they're going to give you more seats in the Senate. So you don't have to rely on somebody like Joe Manchin to get this done, right? That's what will happen. But if they don't want it, then guess what? You're not going to get that. It's really that simple. Again, these same people that claim they want to preserve and protect democracy so much don't respect actual democracy. Because, again, the American people did not vote for them to pass this Build Back Better plan. That's not what they voted for, right? They voted for compromise and gridlock and stalemate, and you just have to deal with it. That is how our government functions, and it functions that way for a reason, to have stability in this country. This is why we're the most successful democracy, right? Or representative democracy, republic, whatever you want to call it. This is why we're the most successful ever, right? This is why the American experiment is successful. This is why we're the greatest country on earth, because of stability. We've maintained stability because we don't allow people like AOC to overrun the damn country because she lives in a small area of this country that has a large population. It's really that simple. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.